The StoryForge Masterclass, Session 1, The Doorway to Creation. Good morning, everyone. It is a profound pleasure to witness your presence here. Ready, curious, and utterly willing to begin this journey. Whenever a new collective gathers, even within this shared online space, a unique energy manifests. The palpable anticipation of a beginning, a force that simply did not exist yesterday. And that, fundamentally, is the essence of storytelling, a creation of something that was not there before. Today marks Session 1. This is not the whole building, not the entire workshop, not the studio itself. It is simply the doorway. Yet every writer, every filmmaker, every storyteller you have ever admired was compelled to walk through this exact door at the inception of their path. This foundational class is about grounding. Before you can run, before you can fly, before you can construct an entire world, you must comprehend what a story truly is, not how it appears from the exterior, not what the audience perceives, but how it functions from the inside. Today you will learn the critical distinction between a complex story and a simple tale, why conflict is the lifeblood of every narrative, how to expertly shift your consciousness into what I term idea hunting mode, the essential state where a writer begins to recognize possibilities in every shadow and every silence. These initial lessons are not merely academic. They are crucial. Without them, you can craft beautiful sentences. You can describe compelling events. But you cannot architect a story that lives, breathes, and fundamentally moves people. Furthermore, you cannot, under any circumstances, progress into the advanced workshop without an absolute mastery of these fundamentals. Consider this free course your foundation stones. They may not be glamorous, but if they are weak, the entire building collapses. The purpose of the preparation. I must be both clear and honest with you. What we accomplish here in these free sessions is crucial, but it is not the craft itself. It is the preparation, the orientation, the muscle warming. These classes are designed to sharpen your instincts so that when you finally step into the master workshop, the full StoryForge Masterclass, hosted on Kajabi, you are optimally prepared to create something real. That advanced workshop is not theoretical. It is not passive learning. It is not a space where you simply watch lessons. It is a forge, a place where you build, where you create, where you write the first professional piece of your life. By the culmination of that master workshop, you will not merely understand storytelling. You will have produced your first serious work, your own polished short story, your definitive film concept, or the first structured draft of your novel or screenplay. Something you can show, something that powerfully represents your voice. But you cannot reach that stage without first mastering the foundational concepts taught right here. That is why these free sessions exist, not as a teaser, not as a preview, but as a mandatory requirement. Without this foundation, the advanced training will overwhelm you, and you will, quite simply, waste your potential. Over the coming sessions, we will delve into how stories are expertly built, how characters evolve organically, the precise mechanics of structure, how genre shapes your critical choices, how symbolism deepens your themes, the professional process of rewriting and refining, and eventually, how to move toward the goal of publishing, production, or adaptation. By the end of this free course, you will not just understand storytelling, you will possess a compass. You will know how to think like a writer. You will read differently. You will watch films differently. You will observe life differently. And most importantly, you will be ready for the real work. Today we open the door. In the coming sessions, we prepare the tools. And once you enter the Masterclass workshop on Kajabi, you will build your first professional creation. Now let us commence Session 1. What is a story? Where does it begin? And how does a single spark evolve into a world? Session 1. What is a story? From idea to spark, full text format. Good morning, everyone, and a profound welcome. I am absolutely thrilled to see so many bright, inquisitive minds ready to embark on this journey into the formidable world of storytelling. This is your true first step toward becoming not merely a writer, but an architect of worlds and a purveyor of human experience. This first session is absolutely foundational. We are going to precisely define what a story actually is, grasp its core mechanism, conflict, and, most importantly, learn the discipline of switching our brains into a mode that constantly hunts for the gold of great ideas. Let us dive in, defining our terms: story, tale, fable. We use these words indiscriminately in common conversation. Story, tale, narrative, fable, account, yarn. But as master storytellers, we must be precise. The most comprehensive term for our purposes is story. A story is a sequence of events that follows a cause and effect, relationship, and invariably involves a protagonist pursuing a goal despite opposition. It is fundamentally about change. A character moves from one state to another. The key focus here is transformation and causality. Because of A, B happened. Example: a young, ambitious man leaves his provincial village, A, to seek his fortune in the capital, but he discovers the city is corrupt, forcing him to choose between his ambition and his morals, B. In stark contrast, a tale or narrative, kasahu chese, is a simpler recounting of events, often focused on what happened rather than why it happened, or how it changed the character. It emphasizes the sheer plot and the chronology. Think of children's bedtime stories. The key focus is chronology and events, and then A happened and then B happened. Example: once upon a time, a woodcutter lived in the forest. He met a witch. The witch gave him an apple. He ate it and fell asleep. Finally, a fable or account is a short narrative specifically engineered to illustrate a moral truth or lesson. Characters are often symbolic, like talking, animals, and serve the ultimate purpose of teaching the audience. The structure serves the theme of morality and lesson. Example: the story of the tortoise. And the hare teaches us that persistence beats pure speed, slow, and steady wins the race. The master's takeaway. When we speak of screenwriting or literary fiction, we are exclusively focusing on the story because our primary interest is the character's internal and external journey of change, relentlessly driven by cause and effect. The heart of every narrative. Conflict. If I could engrave one immutable truth into your minds today, it would be this: conflict is the engine of story. Without conflict, you possess a situation, not a story. A man woke up, had coffee, and went to work is a situation. A man woke up, had coffee, and realized his arch-nemesis had stolen the secret formula he was supposed to present that morning is a story, because a goal is immediately opposed by a force. Conflict is essential because it creates tension. The protagonist desires something, but a significant force is actively stopping them. This gap creates the tension. It reveals character. A character's true, complex nature is only unveiled when they are subjected to pressure, forcing them to make difficult, revealing choices. It drives the plot. The relentless attempts to overcome the conflict constitute the plot points of your story. We categorize conflict into 3 main types, which you must always strive to identify. Man versus man. The protagonist struggles against another individual, or a group, the antagonist. Example: 2 detectives with opposing methods racing to solve the same case. Man versus nature. The protagonist struggles against the environment, fate, or any external non-human force. Example: a sailor fighting a massive, uncontrollable storm at sea. Man versus self. The protagonist struggles against an internal force, a fear, a moral dilemma, or an addiction. This is often the most profoundly compelling conflict. Example: an inventor struggling with a crippling lack of self-confidence, preventing them from sharing their world-changing invention. Practical application: when an idea surfaces, immediately ask, what is the conflict here? And what does my character stand to lose if they fail? The hunt. Switching your mind to idea-seeking mode. This is the essential transition from passive observer to active creator. Ideas are ubiquitous, but you must cultivate a writer's eye, a specialized way of viewing the world that transforms raw observation into potential narrative. 1. The what-if trigger. This is the single most potent tool in the writer's arsenal. Take a mundane observation, a news headline, or a historical fact and ask, what if the opposite were true? What if this one element changed? For instance, if you observe a local bakery closing after 50 years, the spark could become, what if the baker has a secret recipe so powerful it could cure a deadly disease, and he's closing because a global pharmaceutical company is desperately trying to steal it? This process transforms a mundane event into a fully formed thriller concept. 2. The daily conflict log. Immediately begin carrying a small notebook and dedicate a section to meticulously recording conflict you observe, no matter how small or subtle. Observation: a security guard at a museum staring intently at a particular painting for 5 minutes, completely ignoring his duties. Idea spark: the guard is an ex-thief who knows the painting is a fake, and he's agonizing over whether to expose the fraud and lose his quiet. Legitimate life. 3. Combining two unlike things, the juxtaposition technique. Take two completely unrelated concepts and force them to coexist. The tension of their fundamental incompatibility often generates the initial, powerful idea. Example: combine a medieval knight with the modern stock market to generate the idea of a disgraced knight who is somehow transported to present day Wall Street and has to use his outdated codes of chivalry and honor to expose a massive financial corruption scheme. End goal: the 5-point logline. Now we synthesize everything you have learned. A logline is a single, compelling sentence that encapsulates the core of your story. Protagonist: goal, obstacle, and stakes. It is the ultimate test of your idea's immediate strength. The formula: protagonist must goal before stakes consequence. When they run into obstacle antagonist, you must answer 4 key questions in one powerful sentence. Protagonist: who is the main character? E.g., a cynical war veteran. Goal: what do they want? The character's primary active desire. Obstacle antagonist: what is actively preventing them from achieving it? The main source of conflict. Stakes: what happens if they fail? The consequence that drives tension. Example of a strong logline: a brilliant but socially awkward young journalist must uncover a massive political conspiracy before her rival scoops the story and she is fired, completely ruining her career. Protagonist, goal, obstacle, stakes are all crystal clear. Your assignment: the spark. For our next session, your immediate task is to use the techniques we discussed. The what-if, trigger, the conflict log, or juxtaposition, to generate 5 original log lines. Remember to keep the formula in your mind. Who wants what, and what stops them? Bring those 5 log lines with you. We will critique them, tighten them, and begin the rigorous process of turning them into actual story structures. Any questions before we conclude? Excellent. Go out there and start seeing the world through a new story-hungry lens. Logline examples for your assignment. Here are 2 complete, High-level logline examples that powerfully demonstrate the formula we discussed, setting a clear standard for your assignment. Genre: psychological thriller. A perpetually exhausted single mother, who moonlights as a data analyst, must race to decipher a cryptic series of financial transactions before a shadowy, international cartel can frame her for corporate espionage and have her separated from her only child. Protagonist: a perpetually exhausted single mother data analyst. Goal: to decipher the cryptic transactions. Obstacle antagonist: a shadowy international cartel trying to frame her. Stakes: losing her child. Genre: fantasy adventure. When a shy apprentice cartographer accidentally discovers the location of a legendary cursed kingdom, he must join forces with a rogue pirate captain to destroy the map before the king's ruthless royal guard can seize it and unleash an ancient, world-destroying plague. Protagonist: a shy apprentice cartographer. Goal: to destroy the map. Obstacle antagonist: the king's ruthless royal guard. Stakes: an ancient world-destroying plague being unleashed. These examples clearly showcase the protagonist. Goal, obstacle, and stakes, all synthesized into a single compelling sentence. Now it is your turn to create 5 unique log lines using this essential structure. Session 1, Part 2. Story, Craft, and the Architecture of Ideas. Full masterclass lecture. All right, everyone, settle in. Now that we have definitively articulated what a story is and how conflict expertly breathes life into it, we are going to deepen the lens of our observation. Think of Part 1 as learning the anatomy of a living creature, its bones, its muscles, its organs. Part 2 is about learning how that creature moves, how it hunts, how it reacts, how it grows, and critically, how it transforms. Today, we transition from mere recognition to active creation. We are going to explore the precise mechanics of how stories behave, how ideas evolve, and how a writer's mind learns to transmute raw experience into narrative architecture. This is the phase where you truly begin to feel like a storyteller, not simply a consumer of stories. Story is not about events, it's about meaning. Writers who are just commencing their journey often dangerously confuse what happened with what the story is. Events are merely the surface ripples. A story lives beneath them. A storm hitting an island is not a story. A character deciding whether to abandon their family during that storm is a story. Why? Because story is always about a human decision under pressure. Pressure creates revelation. Revelation creates change. Change creates narrative meaning. Let me offer you a simple, powerful contrast. Event-focused thinking. A thief breaks into a house and steals a necklace. Story-focused thinking. A thief breaks into a house and steals a necklace, only to realize it belonged to the mother who abandoned him as a child, and now he must decide whether to keep it or return it. Do you see the critical shift? The skeleton of narrative is not the action. It is the profound question that action forces. As you commence your writing journey, you must rigorously train yourself to immediately ask, what is the human question here? What emotional or moral pressure is this creating? What decision is going to reshape this character? Once you start viewing stories through this lens, you are already ahead of 90% of beginners. Conflict is not always loud. It can be silent, psychological, even invisible. Earlier, we established conflict as the immutable engine of storytelling, but conflict is not always a sword fight, an explosion, or a chase scene. Some of the strongest conflicts in all of literary and cinematic history barely register motion on the surface. A man sitting alone at a kitchen table, staring intently at a phone he's terrified to answer. That can be more dramatic than a battlefield. You must develop the skill to perceive conflict on 3 interacting layers. Layer A, external conflict, visible tension. This is the most overt form. A rival, a villain, an enemy, a physical obstacle. It is concrete and tangible. We can literally see it happen. Example: a journalist is hunted by agents because she uncovered a secret file. Layer B, Internal conflict, psychological. This is where true storytelling achieves depth. A character wants one thing, but something deep inside them actively resists. Fear, shame, desire, guilt, a wound from the past. Internal conflict fundamentally shapes the meaning of the story. Example, a soldier wants to save his brother but suffers crippling panic attacks after the war. Layer C, philosophical conflict, theme level. This occurs when the story itself argues with itself. Two worldviews clash. Freedom versus order, faith versus logic, individual. Desire versus duty, love versus loyalty. This is the fertile ground where timeless narratives are born. Example, a scientist discovers an AI, consciousness, and must decide whether intelligence equates to personhood. Great storytellers masterfully make these layers interact. The villain pressures the external. The fear pressures the internal. The theme pressures the philosophical. When a story powerfully resonates, it is because these layers form a triangle, constantly squeezing the protagonist toward their inevitable transformation. The writer's eye, turning life into story material. A writer does not look at the world the way others do. Where others perceive mere normality, a writer sees possibility. People often mistakenly believe you need a dramatic life to write dramatic stories. This is emphatically not true. You need a dramatic eye, a specialized way of watching people that instantly reveals tension. Here is the essential shift. Ordinary people see what is happening. Writers see what could be happening underneath. Let us practice this discipline. Imagine you are at a cafe. A man sits alone, stirring his coffee long after it has cooled. Most people simply ignore him, but a writer immediately notices and asks, "Why is he so distracted? Is he waiting for someone? Is he hiding? Did he just lose something critically important? Is he debating a confession? Did he overhear something dangerous?" A single isolated moment instantly becomes a well of possibility. This habit is not optional. It is the foundation of professional idea generation. Start treating moments like mysteries, mining reality, where professional writers actually get their ideas. People often assume ideas descend from inspiration, a divine spark, a sudden flash. Professionals know better. Ideas emerge from patterns. Let me walk you through several definitive sources every working writer utilizes. Source 1. Contradictions in human behavior. Humans often say one thing and do another. They believe one thing and fear another. They love someone, yet hurt them anyway. Contradiction is story fuel. Example, a priest who no longer believes in God. A detective who hides evidence to protect a criminal relative. A hero who actively doesn't want to be a hero. Source 2, secret. Every single person hides something. Stories grow in the shadows around those secrets. Ask yourself, what happens if that secret is suddenly exposed? Source 3, imbalances of power. Where power is unevenly distributed, story automatically appears. A poor student in a wealthy school. A rookie cop in a corrupt police force. A young coder in a room full of billionaires. Power dynamics are a continuous source of tension. Source 4, emotional truths. Even the most wild, fantastical story needs absolute emotional roots. The fear of disappointing parents. The pain of losing someone. The desire to be seen. The fear of dying alone. If you build from a genuine emotional truth, your idea becomes universal. Source 5, the refusal to change. Humans resist change until overwhelming pressure breaks them. This resistance is story gold. A character doesn't want the adventure, doesn't want the truth, doesn't want the responsibility, but life, or the narrative, pushes them. Idea evolution, from tiny spark to viable premise. Ideas rarely arrive fully formed, like Athena from the head of Zeus. They grow. Every story begins as a spark that must evolve through 3 distinct stages. Stage 1, the spark, curiosity trigger. A single moment, detail, contradiction, or powerful what if. Example, what if an old photograph reveals a person who never actually existed? Stage 2, The premise, structured possibility. Now you strategically add foundational characters, setting, and conflict. Example: a young photographer discovers that someone has edited her childhood photos to include a stranger who may be linked to a forgotten crime. Stage 3, the logline, narrative direction. Now you inject the critical elements of stakes and urgency. Example: a young photographer must uncover the truth behind a mysterious stranger who appears in all her family photos before the man who is supposed to be dead comes after her to silence her. Do you observe that clear professional progression? This is precisely how professionals transform small, initial sparks into saleable stories. Protagonists are defined not by qualities, but by choices. Many beginners obsessively focus on character traits. He is brave. She is shy. He is intelligent. Traits do not define a character. Choices do. A character becomes irrevocably real when they choose to confront, to hide, to sacrifice, to betray, to confess, to fight, to walk away. When instructing beginners, one rule always holds true. A story begins the absolute moment a character is forced to choose something difficult. If no choice is present, the story has not yet begun. Stakes create urgency, and urgency creates story movement. A story devoid of stakes feels soft, floaty, and utterly without teeth. The stakes must answer the core question: what happens if the protagonist fails? Failure must matter. It must hurt. The consequence can be personal, emotional, professional, or existential. Stakes give your narrative essential gravity. Examples of rising stakes. Losing a job is a stake. Losing a child is a bigger stake. Losing a planet is a different kind of stake. Losing one's sense of identity might be even bigger. Here is the master rule. Stakes must matter specifically and personally to your protagonist. A billionaire losing $10,000 means nothing. A single mother losing $200 is devastating. Truth resides in specificity. The story triangle. Protagonist, want, obstacle. This is the simplest, most powerful structural tool for every beginner. A story is formed the moment three elements perfectly align. A character wants something. Something blocks them. The attempt to overcome the block creates change. If a single one of these is missing, the narrative instantly collapses. Character without goal, a portrait. Goal without obstacle, was a wish. Obstacle without character, noise. Story exists only when all three collide. Your brain must become a generator, not a judge. The single greatest obstacle for new writers is not a deficit of ideas, it is self-judgment. You think this idea is stupid. This is not original. This has been done before. Creativity dies under judgment. When generating ideas, your brain must open, not close. Here is the golden rule. During idea generation, never evaluate. Only collect. Evaluation is a process that comes later. Professionals separate these two critical mental modes with unwavering discipline. For now, your sole job is to simply produce sparks. Quantity leads to quality. 5 loglines today, 20 by next month, hundreds in a year. That is the deliberate process through which a writer's instinct is sharpened. Assignment: sharpening the blade. By the culmination of today, I want you to create 5 original loglines. They do not need to be polished. They do not need to be perfect. They do not need to be ready for Hollywood, but they must be alive. Follow the immutable formula. Protagonist must goal before stakes when obstacle stands in the way. Utilize the powerful tools from Part 1 and Part 2. What if? Conflict log. Contradictions. Secrets.